Big hey now to everybody out there. Happy Sunday. Happy Monday. Depends where you are. Depends where you are in the world. Welcome. Welcome 720 Red Squirrel. Man, I haven't seen you in a long time. I guess I posted that stream yesterday with the thumbnail of the squirrel, and I brought you back. Yeah, it's an old thing. Squirrels are my friends. All right. Yeah, so pretty exciting stuff going on today. It's, yeah, not so exciting. Well, there's a lot going on. I did a good stream yesterday. If you get a chance to check it out, I'm looking at current state of HEX ladders, doing a Quattro Cinco ladder, and what that looks like right now, and just kind of dialing in on expected APY total guesses, right, based on the information we have. Going into the future, and just showing that an average APY or APR, expected APR in HEX terms, would be somewhere around 4 to 5% for Quattro Cinco. Ladder, meaning 15 years. You go check it out and get into the detail. But I think the main point that I was trying to get across, super competitive TradFi, both certificates of deposit and treasuries. That being the case, it has something they don't, which is the potential upside of price appreciation, right? The potential that the price could go up significantly. And I'd have to go look at the numbers or remind myself, but I think it's like something crazy. It's like HEX at 50 cents, an $800 Quattro Cinco would be worth $800,000, something crazy like that, or 88,000, excuse me. At $5, it would be almost $1 million. It's like crazy numbers, right? And I know a lot of us are like shy of price appreciation. On the one hand, that's all we do is speculate about that. And then on the other hand, when we're looking at something that we're doing, we're like, nah, it can never go up. So the true believers, will definitely be believing, right? But what's this stream all about? What we're going to do is this is number 99. I don't know. Should I even do 100? I don't know. But this is number 99 T-Share report. And what it's doing is just looking at what's happening with the share rate. And really, it's very similar every week. I mean, there's not a whole lot changing. But it does change. It's just very slow. It's a 15-year cycle for HEX. Why is it a 15-year cycle? Why do I say that? Well, product market fit for HEX is to be certificate of deposit like, but on steroids. It always stepped in and made it so we have a baseline APR now, which is very low, relatively low. Something like 1.6% for 1 year, and then as high as very, very high number for a Quattro Cinco. I say high, but somewhere in that 5, 6, 7% range. And so yeah, and so there's only upwards to go, only up to go. And the thing is the rewards are based on this T-share. And the T-share rate is only going up and to the right, and it's going up faster than people can earn more HEX. They would have to buy it off the market to partake in the mining, or if they already have it, they'd have to commit it, which they maybe would do, right? Don't know. And but that's how more T-shares be created. So we have this deflationary effect on T-shares. Sure, they can go up, but it's more likely they're going to go down. I'll show you that in the numbers. And then what that means is that the APY, the APR, will slowly increase for anybody who is staking. Might not help if people come later, but the ones that are in now, their APR will go up. And that's just simply because there'll be fewer T-shares in the pool over time. And if there's fewer T-shares in the pool, fewer addresses share in all the rewards. And of course, the OA is a big part of that. So just jumping in here and taking a look at our 30-day look ahead, things are looking pretty much like they did last week, right? We're expecting, maybe some slow increases over the next month, getting all the way up to maybe 42. on the Ethereum side, which is in pink, and it's 42,000 hex per T-share. And then, somewhere midway, 41,690 hex per T-share on the Pulse chain side. And the difference between these when we look at them is they're two different networks. And because they're two different networks, we have two different sets of data and users, and they act differently, right? So they move in the same way, but they act differently. Now, by and large, when you see these things moving where it looks almost exactly the same, it's because the stakes exist on both chains pre-fork. And because they existed on pre-fork, the shape of these curves are very similar because those stakes are the ones that are dictating how these changes will take place. And that's because they've been in place for, generally greater than a couple of years. And then they've been accumulating rewards at a level that's higher than today during that period of time. So again, looking at that 42-ish range on the HEX side, and then 4169 on the Pulse chain. We go out 60 days. You can see them again moving up a little bit further, getting a little bit higher. We should see within 60 days both chains right around 42 or higher, and that's 42,000 hex per T-share. Going out 90 days, you can see not much of a change, but we start to see some of these flat spots. You can also begin to see, like in this area here in the middle that I'm looking at, some minor differences between the Pulse chain and the shape of the Ethereum. And that's because likely some stakes came in or were eliminated on either the chains that affect the calculations. And so we'll be just stair-stepping our way up to the 43-ish range, just below 43 over the next 90 days. And we go out 120 days, we should hit 43,000 sometime around September. On the Ethereum side, on the Pulse chain side, we'll just be shy of 43,000 hex per T-share. And so moving on up. That's what happens with these. So yeah, this is working as expected. Now, if these changes are being driven by older stakes that have been made and received a lot of rewards, and we have newer stakes that are being made that are for short time, it really puts a squeeze on the newer stakes being able to get T-shares. It's really putting the squeeze on, because what's happening is the increase in rate is outpacing how quickly people can earn. So then when we go to our end of year doesn't look a whole lot different, still right around that 45,000 hex per T-share range. So that's where we'll be. Again, remember flat spots here. It just means that stakes have not been made yet that'll increase the rate, but they will be. It may be that we actually have to get into each one of these flats before you'll see a new shape. But generally, I don't know if I can go back on this one. No, I have it set. We'll look at the next one. But if you go backwards in time, you just see a slow, steady increase. You don't see a lot of flat spots. It's very rare that we go more than 2 or 3 days without a T-share rate change. And even if we do see that, it's made up on other days where sometimes there's 4 or 5 changes a day. And that's because it's kind of like mini Bitcoin halvenings, right? Little mini increases in the T-share rate and the difficulty in order to get more hex. So taking a look at the chat, see who's out there. I saw you, Tim. Welcome. Bente's here, Norway. Go Norway, right? Right. Grounded in Hex, Ted. How are you? Mayo, Bente. I already saw you. And yeah, Mayflower Combat. Let's see. Here's a question or a statement. You've stated you're confident about PHEX in the future. Would you elaborate more on your thoughts? Thanks. Well, I'm pretty bullish on PHEX and HEX. I just recognize there's a difference between the two, and the difference being, again, they're different chains, going to be different activities, different ways that people will operate on those chains. Now, clearly, we're seeing higher staking on the Pulse chain. But if I was to sum total it all the way down, yeah, there's plenty of opportunity with HEX. So I'm not dissing it. But I do note that most of our activity with HEX, most of the liquidity is over on the Pulse chain side. So I kind of lean in that direction, following our great leader, our Richard Hart. But that's where most of the action is, right? But that could change, right? We don't know, man. You know, we might turn around and suddenly things. Let's say one scenario, things go crazy on Pulse chain, right? And that has an overflow effect on HEX. And then HEX goes crazy, right? Well, then that could attract new buyers, new users, new people who might want to stake on the HEX side, and then all of a sudden that could go woo, so that could go crazy, right? But I think, like many other examples out there, you'll see rotations, you'll see swings, and HEX, in a way people have described it in the past as being kind of leverage on PHEX now. So yeah, Mayo, he did a whole series of streams last day or so. So I didn't see specifically the encouragement about hanging in there, but I'm sure he did say something like that. Yeah, Richard Hart. Woohoo. Talking about different things that are going on in the system and all the rest. And we've been, yeah, it's been a long game. Now, early on, a lot of us had who were involved with HEX and using HEX really kind of came to the conclusion that HEX would be a store of value on Pulse chain, and I think that still works. It still works. I think that's going to be the case. But I can't tell you that. I can't point to it yet, right? Because we haven't seen the rotations. But the theory behind that would be that as different cores peak, that you will see some of the people putting that value into HEX, and then that HEX will go up in value and change the ratio. And then, of course, there's non-cores out there, and there'll be people that are going to be looking to protect the non-cores, because we know what happens in significant downturns, like a bear. You usually do see those great exoduses, right? Because people, thin liquidity, not necessarily with core tokens, and then it's first person out gets the most, right? And so then they'll be looking to put it somewhere. Yeah, Bante. You're saying I have HEX on Ethereum and HEX on Pulse chain. I'm not sure what's best. I don't know what's best either. I can tell you that when I say I don't know what's best, is there's people that obviously are obviously thinking both about price appreciation, but also what they're interested in doing. They want to put it to work, right? Now, if I want to put HEX to work, and I have HEX and I'm on the Ethereum side, there's really only staking, right? Now, you could do LP, but LP is not a fun game. I mean, I haven't had a lot of fun. I mean, it's been interesting, but there's some risks with the LP and permanent loss and all the rest, and the costs that are out there, right? And so people will bring HEX over to the Pulse chain, because it is the same thing, right? It's just that it's a wrapped token when it gets to the Pulse chain. And there are things you can do with HEX on Pulse chain. There is, I mean, you can, some of the pools, HEX to HEX, do very well. People do that. There are some, I don't have a list off the top of my head of all the farming capabilities that you have, but there are a few farms out there still where you can put HEX. There's the PHUX pools and the 2 PHUX. You could do that. I mean, so there's some different opportunities where people can put them to work. by bridging over. And of course, there's liquidity there. There's other people that want it, so you can actually swap it out if you wanted to do that. And of course, this is a pesky saying, hey, they're both important. I agree with that. And bonded liquidity is important as well. And so some people, if they have big enough bags, they'll bring over their EHEX, and primarily just to make sure it's linked up with PHEX for the future, right? So we see that continuation. I don't think that's going to change anytime soon. So I think there's always going to be a market for EHEX on Pulse. Another reason for that. Yeah. Yeah, Mayflower, you're very welcome. The whole idea here is to try to answer questions when we can. I can't answer them all. I try. I mean, and keep in mind, guys, this is all my opinion, right? Even my numbers are like calculations based on forecasts. Forecasts are inherently wrong, but they get us pretty close. XTC. Yeah, thanks. You're welcome. Right. Well, what I've always joked about these T-share reports. This is easy, man. I mean, this part of it is easy because these numbers really do what they do, right? So, I mean, it's just good. If you are a staker or miner only, it's nice to once in a while be able to go look and see what's going on, and see how things are changing. Bente was asking, I think, previously about the EHEX on both chains being the same thing. They are the same thing. Now, always validate your addresses because there are like a ton of copycats. And of course, there's scams out there, man. I see some tokens when they launch, like 4 versions will launch at the same time. And that's just like low level scheming, because when something's new, people will search for it and then they may not find the right address. So always go look at those addresses. You can check that out. 720 saying the EHEX bridge value lever is interesting. It is because you're essentially taking value from the the Ethereum side and moving it over to Pulse chain. And while it's locked in the bridge and holds value, that is more value. Yeah, Pesky. This is a good. This is good. A good. Public service announcement. Good old PSA. I promise I didn't blow my first half of my first investment in the first week loading LPs. Yeah, very easy to do that. If you are interested, people are interested in going into LPing and whatnot. You likely are going to learn through mistakes. That's just how it is, right? And so there are safer routes. Some people just do straight up, LP providing V2 style or V1 style. But what you learn really quickly, of course, V1 doesn't pay anything because it's V1 on PulseX in this case, and all of the rewards go to burn PulseX, which is nice because PulseX is burning like heck. But when we look at some of the other LPs like the V2, you'll which is just infinite range, 0 to infinity. The liquidity spread out all over the price ticks across all of the ticks from 0 to infinity, which just means there's very little liquidity per tick. And so unless you have a really hot pair that moves a lot, you don't really see APR. It's very hard to get APR that way. So just like standard, like, hey, something that run of the mill that's doing pretty well on Pulse Chain is 2 to 3% APR, which may not be enough depending on the assets, right, to substantiate doing it, unless you just wanted to support it. Unless you wanted to support it. We can look at some APYs here. I see 2 more things we'll cover real quick, and then I'll move on, look at some other charts. Give us a cheeky price prediction for HEX. Yeah, and it's not financial advice, but I just don't see a world where we don't get back up to all-time highs for sure, right? But I say for sure, but that's in my mind. That's me. That's my thinking. Not that that's what is really gonna happen, but I think it's possible. I think it's more chance that it gets above all-time high than it doesn't, right? So could be wrong. This is a long game, multi-cycle. we know what people want, right? I mean, we know people will be super disappointed, right, if we don't get back up to all-time highs. But anything could happen. But I do lean the other side. I think that there's great opportunity for HEX to do multiples of all-time high. And if I was to guess at very round numbers to be cheeky and funny, like you say, I think $5.55 would be a hell of a target. But guys, you got to remember, that's a very big number, and this is crypto. Those numbers are achievable, sure, but there's always going to be somebody who's selling. There's always be selling, right? So, yeah, I mean, if the higher those numbers get, the bigger the dip on a downturn for sure, and it's can't really use the history of HEX to really predict what will happen with HEX. I mean, you can kind of like elaborate on it and be like, well, look, I did 10,000x, I can do 10,000x again. Sure. In general terms, it could do that. But that 10,000x on HEX, we have big players move in. Could we have new big players move in like the Godwell? Sure, we could do that. Could the Godwell do something else? Sure. Could the OA do something else? Sure. We just don't know until they do it. But the first run up had that going for it. Then you also had DeFi being new and volatile, and things like that happen in DeFi summer. We had the injections of cash or value from the different payouts from the governments, and then you had even the HEX like really benefited from the Uniswap airdrop. I mean, I woke up one morning and was like, holy crap, somebody gave me all this free money. What did I do with it? I swapped it into HEX. A lot of people did that. Yeah, that going on. And then, of course, we had one-time event like the big payday event, and then the sacrifices. Now, the sacrifices really changed the shape of HEX and how that would operate, because there was something to do with your HEX other than to hold it, sell it, or mine it, right? And so that created a unique set of circumstances, which also helped with the whole 10,000x, right? And so we don't have all those things the way they are, right? The way they happened in 2021. And so we're going to have a new set of things that'll take place, and that's what we'll be looking for. That's what we'll be looking for. Yeah, XTC. I was glad he posted that Richard was talking about a new workout regime. I thought that was an interesting marketing technique. I like seeing that. I've been myself personally. I've been in the gym the last month for, I don't know, 22 out of 30 days. So I'm only taking time off for rest. So I like what he was doing. I don't know if I'm going to follow his workout. And I think he said something about it taking 3 minutes. I'm not sure. My workouts take me a good hour, so I don't know if I could do everything he mentioned in 3 minutes. All right, and a good mention here, reminder about hitting the likes and posting out to the media. Not just this, but all the things you were interested in on the whole HEX. All right, let's go take a look. Since we're talking about LP, let me pull up my tracked volumes. So these are HEX Fire tracked volumes. I don't track all tokens, but I track a great many of them that are interesting. I pulled up HEX. So today I'm showing about $1 million worth of trading in the last 24 hours with HEX. And just to kind of illustrate my point on pairs, let's go to I'm just going to select V1 or V2 pairs. So I'm going to exclude the V3s because they tend to have much higher numbers. But you can follow this down. I'll make it bigger on the screen for everybody. And I'll try to read off what we got here. Let me bring it up. All right, so our number one trading pair is HEX Pulse on V1. Of course, the APR is 0 because, as we said, there's no payment there, right? And this is HEX, so that's PHEX, right? The second biggest trading pair was, again, HEX Pulse, but this is V2. And V2 has been, today anyways, it's 7.83% APR, right? And then you have HEX from Ethereum. It's been paying 18% today. I expect that to go up when we have greater volume, but, the thing about about that is you are getting impermanent loss. So now in my head, I'm guessing that HEX and EHEX are going to go up in value against Pulse. So that would mean that you would lose HEX and then or EHEX and have more Pulse. Another one here, and this kind of begins to illustrate my point a little bit further, right, about the LPing. This is HEX from Ethereum versus HEX, 5.6% in the last 24. That's a little bit more towards reality that most people see. But then when you start looking at other pairs that are set up that are not central core pairs, even the incentive is only down here at 4%. For HEX from Ethereum versus incentive. And you just begin to see them sort of taper off. Very much subjective to what's going on the day, right? If I put this in order by APY in the last 24 hours, we can see the greatest V2 pair with kind of limited liquidity, $6,000 worth of liquidity was this MV. I forget what the actual name of that is, but it's from the Tropa system. Then you have Treasury bill versus EHEX at 23%, 18%, da, 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 da. But if I go down further, you start seeing things that aren't highly actively traded as much. They start getting into the lower percentages. Some of the derivatives down here in the 3 to 4% range. Pump tires type, activity. This one happens to be pump itself at 2.74. But when you start getting down below 1.5, you start getting into areas with it that I'd be concerned about impermanent loss. You got surgical trainers from Johnny Chaos versus HEX, but it's less than 1%, right? So if you're providing that LP, you're probably going to be having some impermanent loss that you don't like, and then a whole host of other tokens. The list just goes on and on, different pairs and types. And my point about bringing that up is, with LP, there are days where there are really, really good days where some of these LPs will pay on an annualized basis, 10, 15, 20% or more. But tomorrow it could be 1%. All depending on the actions on chain and what people are doing. And so it's not a sure thing, that you can just earn a ton of value that way. So it requires a lot of work and diligence to maintain LP. I think Richard one time said it was the stupidest thing you could do is provide LP. There's something to that effect, but because it just put your coins at risk. But somebody has to provide it, right? It's somebody has to make the market, or some entity has to make the market. So you do have liquidity providers. All right. So as a recap, we're looking at getting out all the way to 25, somewhere around the 45,000 level. But then we start looking year over year, end of 26, somewhere around 46, 50,000, end of 27, 54,000. I'm going to guess it'd probably be a little higher, than these numbers, but these are pretty close, for what we're looking at. And as far as staking, is we're going to see that 4,000 or 5,000 increase per year, at least until we see something change. And when I see something change, what I mean is either great adoption or great capitulation. Either one of those will begin to affect things, right? And so what does great adoption look like? Great adoption looks like billions more pulse per month being staked. That might be one angle. Or billions more pulse being purchased. It's another angle, right? Swap taken off the market, that could happen. Or people themselves, other than a few players, and really don't have that much HEX to really make big changes to this. But you could see the new staking taking place, like I mentioned, or the opposite of that would be emergency end stakes. Emergency end stakes would change things because those stakes that are in place, they would actually start eliminating some of these changes, right? Because some of those stakes that have been in place from, like, say, Big Payday, they're on schedule to increase the rate eventually. And if they're ended early, well, they don't exist anymore. And if they don't exist, they're not going to change the rate. So you have that. But then you would also have greater payouts from the from that happening, and that would be because of the penalties And so you'd have like this recursive effect. A penalty gets taken, like 80%, 90% of all of that penalty ends up in the OA. The rest of it gets distributed to stakers. Actually makes, through the remaining stakers, it makes HEX even more rare. But the half that comes out and goes to the OA immediately, and half of the penalties, that's minted. It's considered to be minted, and because it's minted, it will increase the amount of HEX that gets paid out per day. And if it increases the amount of HEX that gets paid out per day, then your payout per T-share per share goes up, which would increase this chart, which is likely what I would expect to see happen. So emergency end stakes would cause the share rate to go up. Huge amounts of staking would cause the increase in the share rate to slow down, just like we saw with the OA. We saw it in real time with the OA. So that's what would happen with the T-share rate. Looking at our long-term estimates, again, these numbers are so out there. I have no idea what they'll actually be, but looking around 80,000 HEX per T-share, or somewhere around 2040. Again, all subject to change. A couple different models showing different levels that it might end up being, maybe 74K, maybe 80K, somewhere in that range. The more time that passes, more opportunity for all these numbers to change. And of course, the closer you get to the current date, the more accurate these types of predictions will be, right? And that's because we have so much sunk in information. Yeah, hey, Benta, you're asking a question about where do you see people unstake or emergency unstake? Why? Of course, you can see that on hexfire.io. You go look at the mining data, and you can go just see which stakes have ended and whatnot. But if you need more information than that, let me know. But we have all that info, right? I think there might be a couple other places you can go look and see. But I do track the emergency end stakes and the penalties. Maybe we can go look at that before we end this session as well. I'm tracking in particular the 29 and 30 stakes that are out there, the ones that were slated to end in 29, 30, and watching the emergency end stakes just to see what the flavor is. And yeah, we see a slight increase, I guess not unexpected that we're seeing an increase in emergency end stakes, but we're not seeing capitulation. Right. So that leads me to believe that people are holding strong, and or some of those stakes are incapable of being emergency end staked. Meaning, perhaps they're held in such a way that they can't be emergency end staked. That's something that I think is real, that's out there. Don't get me started on the whole UFO stuff, Sami. All right. Now, so I'm just going to go back one more slide to look at this. So we see this T-share rate going up and to the right. Okay. And yes, it's not going up as fast. However, when we start looking at the drawdowns, this is a very important part of this. I was looking at the Cuatro Cincos from May that had come through. We're just not seeing, huge Cuatro Cincos, of course. Not in size or in numbers. Why? Prices are down. People are iffy about the future, but I think I think it could turn out to be certainly a bet. So it's a gamble. I think it's going to turn out to be that everyone who will say it will be like, man, I should have been doing this Cuatro Cincos. I should have been doing them. Don't know why I didn't do it. Don't know why I didn't do it. I think that's what people will be saying, because they're willing to chase. Me too. I'm willing to chase all sorts of shiny stuff, but I'm like, I don't know about locking up. But see, this is where a ladder is pretty helpful, because if you have a ladder set up, you have access and flexibility over time, and you can let time in the market win out, at least for a portion. And guys, by the way, I often think about it this way. A lot of times we get stuck kind of in a rut. Like there's only one way to do things, and that's buy low, sell high, and you cycle trade. Well, not everybody does really great with that, right? But I mean, it's the thing is people do. A lot of people do, right? And but then there's some that'll be like, always keep a hodl bag, right? You keep a hodl bag, right? And meaning you'll keep something forever into the future just in case something happens, right? But we chase all this junk, and we might not be willing to like jump into the hex because you're locked up. But with a ladder, you have that availability continuously, and so you can wear different hats. And like I get on these streams, I'm like, I'm wearing my hex miner hat right now. I don't have a hat, but maybe I'll get one. But I get my hex miner hat on, and so this is all about hex mining and this part of it. So I recognize there's other things that people could be doing, right? But with the with the hex mining, there's a certain set of rules and business model. And yeah, I mean, why wouldn't you set up if you're running around crypto doing what I think you're doing? Yeah, why wouldn't you just take a small percentage and make sure you're allocated into Hex? I mean, why did you get here in the first place? Right? Probably because of Hex, one way or another. So why wouldn't you do that and at least keep yourself open for the asymmetrical gains, right? All right. So we saw that the T-share rate has been going up and to the right. Right. So let's look at Ethereum. This is looking at about the last 30 days, and on the Ethereum side, we had almost 100,000 T-shares end, but only 40,000, almost 41,000 started. So we saw a drawdown in the T-shares, day over day, of about 59%. So what is that saying? It's saying that for every 100,000 that have ended in the last month, only about 41,000 have started. All right. So the T shares are going down in count, and they're going down pretty rapidly, right? And same thing on the pulse chain side, though not as dramatically because we have a lot more short staking on pulse chain. But so when we look there and you see 100,000 T shares were ending, if that was the number, I'm just rounding off just for the example. If 100,000 ended on the pulse chain, we drew down 40%, so only 60,000 were started. Right, the actual numbers was we had 141,000 and change end, but only 84,000 and change start, and so we're seeing a delta. We're seeing a delta. The T shares are going down. Now, what does that mean to me? Why is that important? Well, T share rate's going up. Oh, even though you can't see it very well because the numbers are so small, when people end their stakes and they don't create new T shares, the payout goes up. The payout per T share is going up, right? So it's going up very, very small numbers. And so you have this very significant gap between, how fast how fast you can get more T-shares without either extending and committing longer into the system or putting more hex in. And so I'm going to use just kind of rough numbers. We said we're at what? Let's take a look. This is just something that occurred to me to look at this. So we're going to look right now, 30-day, where are we at? So we'll look at pulse chain. We're at 41,340, right? So 41,340 hex per T-share. Right? At the end of this year, I probably didn't want to do it that way, do I? I want to go one full year. Let's see. What can I do? Can I change this? I want to go back and get some numbers, earlier numbers. But I don't have them I don't have it unfiltered on this one. Let me look and see if I can look at this one. Go filtered. No. I may have to go look it up real quick and see what it is. How about my speculative? Did I leave it open? What I'm going to do is just go back. Here we go. Blah, blah. I'm going to change it over here. And I'm going to say, we want to go 1 year in the future. So I'm going to, I had originally set this up for in the next Quattro Cinco. So instead, what I'm going to say is in the next 365 days, let's apply that. Let's see if I get a change. And I'm going to go out to, yep, 531.26. All right. What I really wanted was this to change for me. Sorry about that, guy. His on or before. Let's do 531.26. This is what happens when I try to ad hoc something. All right, here we go. So you see how I shortened this up a little bit? I'm not sure why my filter didn't work up here. So a year from now, I'm expecting the PHEX to be 45,500 in 1 year. 45,500, right? So 45,500 roughly. So our T-share rate is going to increase in 1 year, 4,160. So let's do that. And we're going to divide that by what we said we're at now, which is roughly, I'll use the 41,300. Yeah, so it comes up pretty close. So 41,300. You know, the numbers aren't going to matter a whole lot for this, but we're looking at roughly a 10% increase. A 10% increase over the next year in the share rate. 10%. And how much do you earn on a 1 year stake now? Yeah, right around 1.6% roughly. What's the maximum that you can make on a Quattro Cinco right now? It would take you so long to get out there, right? You know, it's around 5-6%, right? 7%ish. I think maybe on a Quattro Cinco max. All right. So regardless of what the exact numbers are, you're looking at the rate as short stakers come out, they cannot get the T-shares. They're making, you know, the T-share rate's going to increase 10%. Short stakers at best are going to be making over a year, you know, that 1.6%, right? And so the gap between those numbers is that is your stakes, and if you're staking and you're doing the short staking, you're not going to get your T-shares back, right? The only people that can afford to get the T-shares are the people who, or you know, I say afford. I mean, it's always conditional and relative, but are the people that either have the HEX in their wallets or they had previously been participating. And if they've previously been participating, they would have earned all this extra HEX. But to get the T-shares that we're talking about, they got to lock that HEX up. They got to relock. Otherwise, they're falling out of the market. And so going back to what we were looking at, which is the expiring shares. So this is what I'm saying is we can see, you know, on the drawdown, what's happened over the last 30 days, you know, 40% of Pulse Chain not being recreated. So you know, and this number's only gone up in the negative direction, right? Not come down, it's only gone up. And so we're not seeing the T-shares being created. And so if other people aren't creating T-shares, you have an opportunity to create T-shares. So when we look into the future, you know, over the next month, just looking at the last month, I would expect to see us lose another 100,000 T-shares on both chains. You know, probably 120,000 on the on the Pulse Chain side for sure. And so again, T-shares will be disappearing while other people aren't even, you know, not even making new stakes. So when we go to the share counts, we can see that here on the chart, how we went way up. Now it's coming down, right? Because it's primarily deflationary. Let's see what this looks like from April 1st, 2025. Right? You can see it right here. Down. So people either aren't staking and therefore stakes aren't being made, or they are staking, they're just not making as many shares. And so again, that opens up this opportunity for anybody else who is interested in that. And yes, it's a long game. It's a long game. But you know, you can you can go out to 15 years and have a small exposure, and yeah, maybe it's a YOLO, maybe it's a YOLO. But I mean, the idea that an $800 Quattro Cinco today could be worth, and the numbers vary. Go look at my stream. It's in there. And anybody who's on my mailing list, you actually got a email with a PDF with all the details in there. But if you're doing Quattro Cinco at 50 cents, in 15 years, if HEX is at 50 cents, that's a $88,000 HEX stake, probably somewhere in that kind of range. And at $5, it's almost $1 million. It's 888,000. So pretty crazy numbers. This is our distribution of the stakes and of the T-shares and how they'll be expiring after 2040. I don't know what the OA is going to do, man. But after the OA, everything just falls off a cliff, right? So I'm really curious to see, next year after, does the OA begin doing a regular ladder out Quattro Cinco? While there's a gap. There's an opportunity, right, to get in there before the OA gets in, get a better share rate. And, a lot of this is all predicated on the belief, the OA is going to be benevolent, not hurting the system, hasn't done that, blah, blah, blah. So, but it really becomes player versus player at the user level, right? Because all this is hard maybe to get at, to understand just how big a share you have as compared to the OA. An example of that is out on the Twitter Spaces, right? Somebody was asking about an update for this 2040 league. And I do need to do some work on this. The actual, if I was looking at just users and not the OA stakes, a dolphin position would be something like 3 or 4 T-shares, maybe even less than that. And a shark position would be something 10 times higher, like a 30 T-shares. But because I have not filtered out the OA, but it gives you the idea of the difference, just how many T-shares are out there. Out in 2040, to be a dolphin, you need 1,675 T-shares right now, because you're competing about the OA. You're competing with the OA, and so I think one of the things I'll do is try to pull them out so that we can look at just user held. The problem is there's thousands of addresses and nobody knows exactly which ones are which, right? We have a good idea. I mean, I can filter out things like 50 million HEX stakes and that type of thing, and maybe kind of clean it up a bit, give us a better idea. Ben Sierra, shout out to him. He did send me a list of what he believes are OA stakes. I thought that was good. I haven't incorporated my data, but I will do that. All right. I'll go to the last question first. Hey, Bente, if people go over to my site, this is our the Hexfire site over here, Hexfire IO. I'm logged in right at the moment, but if I'm not logged in, what'll happen is it'll come up and like all annoying sites, it'll say, hey, do you want to join you want to subscribe? There's no cost to it. You just drop in your email address and you subscribe to the site. And I send out things like blogs and whatnot periodically. Mostly I react to what people are asking for, at the time. So like I did one yesterday. This is the trustless yield one. I forgot I could go this way and go look at this, but I didn't queue it up. But just a little blog post on what a Quattro Cinco might look like, a ladder might look like, and then there's a PDF in here that you can actually pull up and review and go over. And it has all the data based on our forecast today as to what's out there. So I put things out there that are interesting to me, to other people. Like my most recent, let's see, am I still on that screen or did it go off? Okay. So my most recent, I didn't know if it opened a new window or not. My most recent ones, I've talked about. I talked about the new 2025 mining ladder, what that looks like. LPX, which is coming from the UpX guys. Actuator. That's another protocol I'm pretty hot on. I like a lot. I think it can make a big changes for us. I probably should change this, update this strategies for staking guide, but I bet you it's pretty close to being today. Anyways, so lots of different things. If somebody asks for a blog, I'll put one up too. So, I'll go after a specific topic. But so these are available out there, and you can sign up for the site. Just go to the site, and it's a subscribe, and you can just tell it whether you want to receive email or not. If you don't want to receive email, you won't get it, but you can go navigate to the site and go look at the stuff. Yeah. So that's what's going on there. All right, let's move in along here. Yeah, Hexagon 720, you're welcome. I appreciate it. There are some other people out there, of course, doing some good work, but continuing on. And Bente finally saying, yeah, he loves Hex, or she. I don't know. I think Bente, you're he, but I don't know. In any case, yeah, I love the HEX staking too. I've never been more bullish on it, but I realize just because I'm experiencing the same personally, it's like hard. It's like, man, how do I even, without green candles, how do I even explain that this is a good thing? So you have to believe that in the long term, there will be HEX and there will be better prices on HEX long term. And if you can't believe, you can't believe, I guess, but that's what it is. This is the EHEX, and our distribution looks really similar to PHEX. It's designed that way based on, people had gotten the forks and then the OA staking staked on both sides. We go look at the Quattro Cincos. This is a funny chart. These are Quattro Cincos in the last month, and you see how everything's low, right? Or not last month, excuse me, but for some reason I set this up so it would sync with the other page, which I didn't mean to do. But you can see that we just had 724 T-shirts created last month in May. So the numbers are coming down pretty good. Look on a daily basis, it's just a few T-shirts a day getting put in. We have a couple big days where somebody had done something, but we're just not seeing the HEX Quattro Cincos going in, which again, game perspective, just means to me that longer term, man, yeah, I get it. Man, I get that even doing a few T-shirts can be expensive, but other people aren't making them, so maybe I should make them. That's the way I'm thinking about it. So you can see these numbers have come down a little bit month over month, and it was a very low month last month. So it's just what's happening. We'll look at stakes by start again. T-shares in total created around something around the 82,000 level on Pulse Chain. Let's see, Bubba's her date amount of HEX. So it just kind of gives you a view into just how much is being created on a daily basis during this period. Let's see, what else could we look at here? There's probably too much detail already, but let's look at average stake lengths. Still up there at 9 years, both chains. Remember, that's a measurement of open stakes, of course, are high. And it's, they can come down with people merge the end stake, but that's unlikely. And then, but we look at the actual averages, what we're seeing, day over day. June's going to be low, right? Because we just started. We just haven't seen the high average yet. But if we go back 1 month in May, and on EHEX, the average years was 3 years. And then on PHEX, it was 2.5 years. That's the average of all open and closed stakes, right? So that's all, right? Whether they're open or closed. Boom, 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 Bente. Yes, I am a believer. Obviously, I must be a believer. What the hell am I sitting here streaming for 2-3 years on HEX and talking about stuff? I think we're in the same age group. People around me think I'm a little crazy. Yeah, dude. People already think I'm crazy. Man. Like I had people when I told them about HEX, they just stopped talking to me. Ah, that was it. It was like I called them up on a Sunday and said, "Hey, do you want to come to a business meeting?" Anybody who's ever had that happen to them, knows what I'm talking about. One of these MLM things. I come to a business meeting. Oh, look at these. Look at this knife set. This is the great knife set. Don't you want to sell these? And for every three people, you get more. You get more. But yeah, definitely, definitely. But crypto's crazy in the first place. I mean, I'm sure you guys have other. I mean, maybe everybody doesn't have this experience. I know a lot of people who trade, like they literally try to day trade with their retirement accounts, right? So they have an IRA or whatever, and man, are they happy to get 5%, 10%, and flip and all this other stuff. And I said to him, this goes back because now, of course, I'm watching Bitcoin all the time and Ethereum and whatnot. And I'm not out chasing Bitcoin, but I said to him, I said, hey, if you're so hot on a 20%, why? This is back when Bitcoin was 55,000. I was like, listen, it's going to go up. It's probably going to go to 240. You're clear to get 20%. You're clear to get 20%. Right. I mean, like with Bitcoin, this is what's crazy. We're not satisfied, of course, in crypto, right, with 20%. But if you're outside of crypto, 20% is really good, right? You get 20% a year, you're like golden. So yeah, and so what? It's 100% profit now if they had taken the trade, and they could have right at the time with the ETFs being out, and you still have the GBTC stuff. Though I haven't checked the price on that, but no takers. Nobody wants to, if you're not interested, you're not interested right now. But now that's changing, right? So even during that period of time, things have changed a little bit. Even the last 6, 7 months, you can't get away from all the press that crypto's getting, and so yeah, I think we'll see more adoption for sure. I don't know how I got off on that tangent. I think it's because people think I'm crazy. They're willing to chase other stuff. J.A. Soul, good to see you. Thank you for the 99-cent super sticker. I appreciate it. I think I followed one of your side accounts on X the other day. I don't know. I thought I was already following you, but you have multiple X's. I might be out there. Yeah, but yeah. Just you telling them you haven't, they'll have to look at your funds when you're over 80. Yeah, I keep thinking about that. That's still a ways off, but all you young people, believe us when we tell you that you get older. It just happens. It's unfortunate. It does happen. Hey, Yaveen, you always go back and look at the replay. How you doing? Appreciate the good words. All right, so we looked at this. We see the average stake length. Let's go, because we had the question about the penalties. A couple of things we could do. One, I can go over to my site and let's just go to charts. This is the non-exclusive stuff. These are just information that's out there for the general public. If you have something that you want added up here or something you want to see, put it up here. Let me know and I can do it. I'm going to go over to the HEX mining data. Let's see if I have this configured at all. Let's show this. Takes a moment to load because there's a lot of data behind the whole HEX database. But once it's loaded, you have access to all these different items that are out here. Of course, it is taking even longer probably because I'm watching it. Come on. You can do it. You can do it. We're getting close to a million stakes on both sides now. So it's getting to be pretty crazy. I wonder if this is in the process of updating. Always how it is with ad hoc stuff. All right, so we'll see if that generates here in a moment, but let's look at our penalties. Well, it's actually going to be the same data. While it's trying to load that, let me go over to my exclusive content. we'll take a look here real quick. I want to pull up some of my pulse chain charts. We could always go look at the chicken chart. Nope, that's not the right one. Pulse. I might be loading my computer down with too many things now. It does that to me sometimes. Here we go. All right. Here's our T-share value. So penalties are here. All right. So these are HEX penalties. You can. This is looking at both chains. You can see them going up and over time. Yeah. Okay. It is going up. Ben posts about this, right? That the average is going up, and we are seeing more penalties over time, but I just haven't seen anything that I consider to be like off the chart. Like if we look at penalties over the last 7 days, you can see that the penalties are going up into the right for HEX, right? Now I do kind of my own little measure here as I'm looking at both chains and right, trying to figure out what the average is. And so, you know, these are 7-day averages, but going all the way back to 2023, you know, May of 2023. And you can see the average going up from around 3 million up to up here to this 4 or 5 million kind of a mark. Maybe it's a little bit higher on that. This isn't a regular chart, so I can't just like, hey, see what it is, but it's going up. The average is going up, right? And so most recently, the 7-day average right around the 4 or 5 million mark. And so, yeah, we are seeing increases in penalties, and you know, I would just expect that it's just going to continue to keep going in this direction, just like this. You know, I don't see it being, you know, changing significantly. Now, what could change though? Could change. We'll go look at that chart. I'll have to pull up the link real quick, but is we could see the you know, suddenly see capitulation. And if we see capitulation, that could be huge, right? Meaning a whole bunch of people decide to merge the end stake. Let's see if my charts data loaded. Yeah, here we go. So this is a little bit different view of the penalties. This is the pulse chain side. And you can just see day over day what the penalties are doing. We had a big spike here back when this is back in January, another spike in February, little spike in April, little spike in May. I mean, it's a lot. I mean, you know, if somebody wants to send me 19 million pulse or HEX, please do. I mean, I'll take it. I'll take it. So it's not like these are little numbers, but again, not like extreme, not really like super extreme, you know, type of stuff. Now I'm going to grab another link. Let's go look before we wrap up. We're going to go look at 2029 stakes and what's happening there. 2029 to 2030. Let's see what they are. I'm on a different screen right at the moment, grabbing the link so that I can show it on this screen. I don't think I put it here, did I? I guess I could check that, huh? Get out of here. Let's go to exclusive data. Let's see if I put it in here. 2029. No, I haven't put it in here yet. Bonk. You know, in business, demos are the worst, man. Live demos, because when you're doing the work, it all makes sense. But you try to show other people what the hell's going on. You're like, what is this guy doing? It's like taking forever. All right, let me grab that portal. Doop, doop, doop. Boink. All right, so let's take a look at this data real quick. Let's see where we're at. What I expect to see on the screen once it loads is where we're at for emergency end stakes on the pulse chain. All right, so what are we looking at here on the screen? We have had 744 emergency end stakes in this data set. And that's out of, originally we had 8,193 stakes, with 2.48 sticks, 2.4 million, 2.5 million T-shares. They're going to be ended. Now, what I did with this is I looked at original stakes that were ending between October 29 to April 2030, that were staked between 9 and 10 years. Now, why is that important? Because when we're looking at this other chart, I think I have it up here. We'll look at this other chart and I'll show you why this is important. We want to look at HEX T-shares, right? And so I'm going to filter out 2040 real quick. All right, and you see how 29 and 30 kind of pop up as being the highest years, right? People have watched my streams before already know this, but the OA came in and did a bunch of staking before it and a bunch of staking after it, and maybe even some staking during it. I don't know, I have to check and see if they actually did any in 29 and 30, but see how these big pillars are here? Well, this represents a whole bunch of stakes and HEX that could be ending, their T-shares that could be ending out in 2930, right? But when we drill down into this, go down one level, and no, I don't want to do it that way, do I? Because that's giving me by month. So if I go down, drill down into, I drill down into this particular year, that's not showing me what I want to show either. Oh, that must be where the OA stake is. Yeah, it's OA staked in here, so it kind of like fudged it all up. Anyways, you can just see that we have all these different stakes that are here, and if I'm gonna have to do something with this OA stuff, I guess, exclude it out. But you can see that we have all these different stakes ending during these different periods, but the big numbers really didn't start coming in. And really start coming in until you get into the October time frame. And so if we go back here, all right, that's why I picked October 29 through April of 2030. All right, they didn't really start coming in until then. And so that's this month. So they went up, right? Now, if I come back up to a higher level again on this, and we look at 2030, we'll see, I don't think the OA is in there, but maybe he or she is. 2030. There we go. This shows me a little better picture. I had to select it the right way. So if you look in 2030, you can see by April, again, we've probably got an OA stake in here. We have this big peak in October, November, December, January, February, and then by April, it's tapering off. So I really wanted to target this grouping of T-shares because it was a big number, and that is what's being showed here. And so originally our distribution looked like this, right? And now the shape hasn't changed a whole lot, right? Why hasn't it changed a lot? Because we haven't had that many emergency end stakes. As much as we talk about emergency end stakes taking place, this is the new one after the emergency end stakes. They're very similar shape, right? And so at this point, we've only seen 183,000 emergency end stakes of T-shares. So 183,000 T-shares disappeared because of that. Out of the original 2.4 million, yeah, I guess it's a big percentage, but 10% would have been 240. So maybe it's 7-8% of them haven't been emergency end staked. But a lot of those would have been done in the past. But then you do look here, because you can see the numbers are right on the screen. These are the ones that actually have been emergency end staked since January. 2,000 in January, 380 in February, 846 in March, T-shares that is. Big month in April, 3,510. In May, 769. So my conclusion so far is we haven't seen great capitulation. We have not. Not yet. Now, if we look at the ones that are still open, and this is important to us stakers, right? Us miners. If we're looking at the ones that are open over here. So what happens if all these people, right? Because we've talked about this with Johnny Cass. Johnny's said a couple of times, well, I think these people emergency end stake. And it might be that they do, but let's just assume all of them emergency end stake right now. The average progress on these stakes in this group is 52%. It's coming up on 3%, 53%. So they're past the 50% mark. But if all of these were to end today, only 8.7 billion would come out in as payout. 33 billion, 32.9 billion would go to penalties. And so, and my guess is probably only about 3 billion of that would be spread to the other stakers. It'd be a hell of a payout, but it'd be a hell of a payout to all the other stakers. But it wouldn't really really wouldn't create as much of a release of quantity as you might think. So anyways, yeah, so if we do see all those emergency end stakes, it'd be great for stakers, but we'd only see 8.7 billion hit the market out of the complete potential that is out there. So that's where we are with emergency end stakes. So my conclusion here is I have not seen capitulation. I have not. All right, I see you out there. So yeah, okay, that makes sense. Why you have a couple of different addresses. Oh yeah, Bente's asking about this part. So that was what I was trying to load. Let me go over here back to our data. So now that I had gotten the charts loaded here, I can actually work something up for you anytime so that it's available. I just kind of limit things for the public because not everybody wants to see all this stuff. That was the biggest criticism that I've gotten on what I've done, is that it's too much information. Provide too much information. Go figure. All right, so I could say yes, I want to end, and it doesn't matter what that GA is, and I can see it. So I don't think I actually put it on this screen, did I? I didn't give a way for someone to actually see the dates, and on this one to actually be able to tell. But because I like looking at the information, let me go here. Just to give you a sense of the availability of the data. That's another thing with HEX that people underestimate, is just how awesome it is that this information is available and transparent. Now, sure, there are some steps to get to it, but even though I say that, you as an individual, you could actually go load all this data, and it's available. It's free to get the data. Now, the calculations and work and stuff is a different thing, but there's some work to do that. But in terms of getting data, the pulse chain, man, makes it really cool that you can do that. Okay. So what we're looking at is, again, this data set's loading up. I'm going to go ahead and change this out a little bit, see what I want to do. All right. So I'm just going to clear my selections. Those are clear. Expected end date all the way out into August 2040. I'm going to say ended, yes. And so I want to see all the ones that have been ended, actual end dates between those dates. That makes sense. And then I want to look at, this will give me the list already. I just wanted to say days early. Let's get rid of the ones that just get canceled. And we'll do 1 day early through Cuatro Cinco early. And then we'll look at the penalties paid. So I'll put it in order by penalties. And so, yeah, this is a list of all the emergency end stakes. Now, this is something I could publish a different way so that it's public data. But not very many people ask. It just happens to be we're talking about it, right? But you can look here and you just see just exactly what people did. Minus 100% ROIs, right, on some of them. Stake after stake. So, and we have had quite a few emergency end stakes. Now, remember, there's 84,000 out of a million. Almost 1 million stakes at this point. So it's not really, I guess it's close to 8%, right? Something like that. But a great many of these took place early on when we figured out that we would be better off emergency end staking short stakes, and then turning around and getting, the not so short stakes. And because this is before big payday, and the idea that doing the emergency end stake there got me more T-shares long term, and the pay, bigger pay is better. Yeah, we're new. We're trying to understand it. If we look at it by estimated ROI, we can actually sort the hell out of this stuff and do it. But you just see stake after stake with minus 100% because people did screw up and didn't know necessarily what was going to happen when they did emergency end stake. That's why I always say to people, be careful. Be careful. Right? Let's do 0 on this. If you're going to do emergency end stake, you better know what you're doing ahead of time, right? So estimated ROI, I think, will this take minus 100? I don't know. You don't know for sure. But let's see. Yeah, minus 100. So if I can look real quick here and just look at these numbers, and I can see that we've had 3,700 nukes where somebody just like blasted their entire position, minus 100% ROI, as for instance. But I bet you we haven't had a whole lot recently. Let's do actual end date. We'll do a lot in the last month. I bet you people kind of learned from that. Yeah, so we've had 27, completely blow out in the last month, it looks like. That's crazy. I wouldn't even think that would be the case, but they did it. But that only represents 1.6 million hex that was staked. And they lost all the rewards and everything, so something more like 5 million. These are probably people that just didn't know that they shouldn't do it, or did it by accident. It does happen. It does happen. And then you also have my my tin hat theory, right? Where maybe some of this is being done on purpose. Don't know. I don't know. Anyways, yeah, so Bente, there's some pretty good stuff out here information-wise that we can dig out of the system and kind of dig into. But I don't know, other than knowing about it, there's not about a whole bunch of actionable stuff, But I'm open to the ideas, right? Anyways, we see that here. And then in the last month, let's clear this filter. Let's just see how many actually emergency end staked in the last month. So if I got this number right, of course we got the 100,000. We have had 671 emergency end stakes, so early, anywhere from 1 day early to Quattro Cinco early. And then I don't know if I put it on the screen. Working with data is a pain in the ass if you're not a data person, that's for sure. I have days late on this screen, but I don't have days early. But anyways, you can see that we go by actual end dates. Look at the first one on the list here. Oh yeah. This is a good example of one that's not really emergency end date. Somebody did do a stake for on the 1st of June, which is today, right? They already did it, and they already ended it because they made a mistake, but they didn't pay any penalty. They got everything back, right? So if you do it between UTC, when you do it in UTC, Quattro Cinco at midnight, you can actually end it and not take any get hurt by that at all. That's a 6-1. Let's see the other ones that ended. Here's one that started in April 1st, was supposed to end on July 1st, but they ended it today. I don't know why they did it, but it wasn't that much big of a penalty, just a small penalty. But it was only 40,000 HEX. But then we have another one here for 12 million, and they ended way early, like a year early. But they ended up paying a penalty for that, right? So ended up eating into the principal a little bit, it looks like. All right. Well, I'm sure we lost most of the audience not interested in looking to these kinds of details. And you can contact me, separately on a different thing, and we can look at that. Look at the old February thing that you're looking at. And I guess that's about it. I don't see any more questions out there with anybody in the old chat. And we've been going for an hour 20, so yeah, wrap it up. You guys have any requests, anything you want to be looked at into the future, let me know. I can try to adjust that, but yeah, things are moving along with HEX as expected, and I do believe it's the #1 product, the product market fit. All right, with that, my friends, let's go. You guys stay crispy and stay crispy like bacon, pesky girl, and we will see you next time.